Psychological facts about people who get quiet in relationships. Have you ever noticed your partner suddenly going quiet during an argument? Or maybe you're the one who shuts down when emotions run high. What's really happening in those silent moments might surprise you. Hey everyone, welcome back to Relationship Facts. Today we're diving deep into one of the most misunderstood behaviors in relationships. Going quiet. Whether it's during conflict, emotional moments, or just everyday conversation, some people have a tendency to retreat into silence. But here's the thing. This silence isn't always what it seems. Today, we're exploring the psychological facts behind why some people get quiet in relationships, what it really means, and how to navigate it healthily. If you find this video helpful, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more relationship insights. Let's get into it. Fact 1. It's often a protective mechanism. The first thing you need to understand is that going quiet is rarely about being cold or uncaring. In fact, psychologically speaking, silence is often a protective mechanism. When someone withdraws into silence during conflict or emotional situations, their nervous system is usually in overdrive. This is what psychologists call emotional flooding. When you're so overwhelmed by feelings that your ability to process and communicate effectively shuts down. Research in relationship psychology shows that some people have lower thresholds for emotional arousal. When stress hormones like cortisol spike during an argument, their body goes into a protective mode. Going quiet isn't a choice they're making to hurt you. It's their brain's way of preventing a complete emotional meltdown. Think of it like a circuit breaker in your home. When there's too much electrical current, the breaker trips to protect the system from damage. That's exactly what's happening psychologically. The person is protecting themselves and, believe it or not, trying to protect the relationship from words they might regret. This is especially common in people who grew up in households where conflict was volatile or unpredictable. They learned early on that silence was safer than speaking up. Fact 2. They're often deep processors. Here's a fascinating psychological fact. People who get quiet in relationships are often internal processors. Not everyone thinks out loud. While some people need to verbalize their thoughts to understand them, others need to retreat inward first. These are the people who need time and space to sort through their emotions before they can articulate them clearly. According to psychological research on personality types, introverted individuals and those high in trait conscientiousness often prefer to fully process information internally before sharing. They're not avoiding the conversation, they're preparing for a more meaningful one. In relationships, this can create conflict when you have one partner who processes externally and one who processes internally. The external processor wants to talk it out immediately, while the internal processor needs silence first. Neither approach is wrong, they're just different. If your partner gets quiet, there's a good chance they're not ignoring you. They might be replaying the conversation, considering different perspectives, and trying to understand their own feelings before they bring them to you. This actually shows a level of thoughtfulness and care. They want to communicate well, not just communicate quickly. Fact 3. It can be a sign of avoidant attachment. Now let's talk about attachment theory because this is crucial for understanding silence in relationships. People who get quiet often display what psychologists call avoidant attachment patterns. This stems from early childhood experiences where emotional expression wasn't encouraged, or worse, was met with rejection or dismissal. Individuals with avoidant attachment learn to cope with difficult emotions by suppressing them and distancing themselves from others. In adult relationships, This manifests as withdrawing, going silent, or shutting down during emotionally charged moments. Here's what's happening beneath the surface. They actually do have intense feelings, but they've been conditioned to believe that expressing vulnerability is dangerous. So silence becomes their default protective shield. Research published in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology found that people with avoidant attachment styles often struggle with emotional intimacy because they fear dependency and loss of autonomy. Going quiet helps them maintain that sense of independence, even if it's creating distance in the relationship. The important thing to understand is that this isn't personal. It's a deeply ingrained coping mechanism that was formed long before you came into the picture. With awareness and patience, these patterns can be changed, but it requires both partners to understand what's really happening. Fact 4. Silence can be a form of self-regulation. Here's a more positive spin. Going quiet can actually be a healthy form of self-regulation. Psychologists distinguish between healthy withdrawal and unhealthy stonewalling. Healthy withdrawal means taking a time out to calm down, collect your thoughts, and return to the conversation in a better emotional state. Unhealthy stonewalling means shutting down completely, refusing to engage, and using silence as a weapon. Research by Dr. John Gottman, one of the leading relationship experts, found that taking breaks during heated arguments can actually strengthen relationships, but only if both partners understand that the break is temporary and they'll return to resolve things. When someone goes quiet to self-regulate, they're showing emotional intelligence. They recognize they're too activated to have a productive conversation, and they're choosing to pause rather than say something hurtful or escalate the conflict. The key difference is intention and communication. If someone says, "I need some space to think about this, can we talk in an hour?" That's healthy self-regulation. If someone simply shuts down and refuses to acknowledge your attempts to communicate, that's problematic stonewalling. Understanding this distinction is crucial because it helps you respond appropriately and not assume the worst about your partner's silence. Fact 5. They may fear conflict more than you realize. Let's dig into another psychological reality. People who go quiet in relationships often have an intense fear of conflict. This might seem counterintuitive because their silence often creates more conflict, but here's what's happening psychologically. Many people who shut down during arguments grew up in environments where conflict led to scary outcomes: yelling, violence, abandonment, or prolonged emotional coldness. These early experiences created a neural association in their brain. Conflict equals danger. So when disagreements arise in their adult relationships, their brain triggers a fear response. Going quiet is essentially a freeze response, one of the body's natural reactions to perceived threat, along with fight and flight. Studies in neuroscience show that people with conflict-avoidant tendencies often have heightened amygdala responses to interpersonal stress. The amygdala is your brain's alarm system, and for these individuals, it's extra sensitive to relationship conflict. They're not trying to punish you with silence. They're literally trying to survive what feels like an emotionally threatening situation. Their rational brain knows the conflict isn't life or death, but their emotional brain hasn't gotten that memo. Understanding this can help you approach their silence with compassion rather than frustration. It's not about you. It's about their internal struggle with fear. Fact 6. Silence can be learned behavior. Here's an important psychological fact. For many people, going quiet in relationships is learned behavior from their family of origin. Think about it: if you grew up watching your parents give each other the silent treatment, or if expressing emotions was discouraged in your household, You learn that silence is how relationships work. We often unconsciously replicate the relationship patterns we witnessed growing up, even if they weren't healthy. Psychologists call this modeling. Children learn how to handle conflict, express emotions, and navigate relationships by watching the adults around them. If those adults dealt with problems through avoidance and silence, that became the blueprint. The good news: what's learned can be unlearned. With awareness, intention, and sometimes professional help, people can develop new communication patterns. But it requires recognizing that the silence is a learned habit, not an unchangeable personality trait. If you're someone who goes quiet, ask yourself, where did I learn this behavior? Was silence how my family dealt with problems? Understanding the origin of the pattern is the first step toward changing it. How to navigate it healthily. So how do you handle it when your partner goes quiet, or if you're the one who shuts down? Here are some psychologically backed strategies. First, create a shared understanding. Talk about this pattern when you're not in conflict. Discuss what silence means for each of you and what you need from each other. Maybe you need reassurance that silence doesn't mean abandonment, or maybe your partner needs to know that you'll give them space to process. Second, establish a timeout protocol. Agree that either person can call a timeout during an argument, but set a specific time to return to the conversation. This prevents silence from becoming indefinite avoidance. Third, practice self-soothing techniques. If you're someone who gets quiet, learn grounding exercises like deep breathing or the 5-4-3-2-1 sensory technique to calm your nervous system so you can re-engage more quickly. Fourth, use I feel statements when you do talk. This helps you express emotions without blame, which can make it safer for someone who fears conflict to stay in the conversation. And finally, consider therapy. Whether individual or couples counseling, a professional can help you understand the deeper roots of this pattern and develop healthier communication skills. Remember, the goal isn't to eliminate silence completely. Sometimes we all need a moment. The goal is to make sure silence is serving the relationship, not harming it. So there you have it, the psychological facts about people who get quiet in relationships. The silence isn't always what it seems. It's often protection, processing, fear, or learned behavior rather than a lack of care or an attempt to hurt you. Understanding the why behind the silence is the first step toward building better communication and deeper connection. Whether you're the one who goes quiet or you're with someone who does, compassion and curiosity can transform this challenging pattern into an opportunity for growth. What's your experience with silence in relationships? Let me know in the comments below. And if you found this video valuable, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to Relationship Facts for more insights like this. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video where we'll explore even more fascinating relationship psychology. Take care.